Welcome back to the Sean Trace Show. I've got a really interesting guest with me today. Now, would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
All right. What's up, everyone? I am Brandon Wenerd, the publisher of BroBible.com. And my business and career has been making content on the internet for various audiences, going back almost 15 years now.
That's awesome. What got you into it? What was the thing that made you go, hey, you know what? I'm going to start making content and putting stuff out there.
Growing up, I really wanted to be a writer.
Nice.
It was really my sole ambition in college was I was an English major, and I was an English education major. And this was 2004 to 2008. And I felt like there was a lot of really interesting emerging technologies happening with the internet, and with the idea that you didn't have to be tethered to corporate media or mainstream media or any of these other ways that information gets packaged and put out to people. And, I always loved reading. I was a big reader throughout high school and college, a lot of literature, and then eventually magazines and a bunch of other stuff like that. And I wanted to be a writer really, really, really badly when I was in college. I wanted to figure out how to do it professionally. And the route that I chose after freelancing at a lot of different places was that like blogging was kind of where I wanted to be at the time, because it was a very new immersive ethos. There was a lot of spirit in the independent publishing space at the time. It was like the Wild West. A lot of people were trying to figure out what it was. And, these things that now are like 2-decade-old technologies, it was very new and raw and exciting to be a blogger in like the late aughts. So I really loved that. I loved that spirit, and I loved what that was. It was impossible to describe to other people, and in some ways it still is. But the idea of writing online and earning a paycheck from it was a route that I really, really badly wanted to go down. And what happened was, after I kind of freelanced at a number of different places and sort of learned how to do that professionally, I moved to New York. I met up with some of the original founders of BroBible, which was only a couple of months old at the time, and realized that joining up with something in its incubacy period, like its incubation period as a business and as a brand, was so much more exciting than just going to work at some media factory where I would be, not really able to put my own personality into things, or learning these kind of systems of, corporate media. And BroBible just at the time felt like a great lane for it. I liked who it was trying to talk to, and how specifically millennial men at the time just didn't have something that felt all that authentic. I like that it was disruptive, and I like that there was kind of this punk rock sort of ethos for BroBible to stand out from other like lanes of corporate media and that sort of thing. So that was kind of how I went down this path back in the day. The internet was a very different time. Like, it was completely different. So, I don't know if it's that easy to do that these days, but I mean, it worked back in 2008, 2009.
It's interesting because it is, I'm old enough now to have seen a bunch of different trends, and excited to see, where the things are going from here. But, one of the things that always popped up for me was like, when you were talking about that, I remember working at a spa in LA, when the rise of like the Yelp influencer came up. And it was interesting
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
and so it was like there was nothing there, but then suddenly there were these people who went and just wrote reviews. And
yeah,
and it evolved. And like I remember one day my boss came in and was like, "We all need to just really step it up today." And I was like, "Why? What's going on? Is it a famous celebrity or something?" They're like, "No, it's
yeah,
a Yelp
yeah.
reviewer." And I was just like, "Okay, that's cool." But and I'm not hating on anything. It was just like it emerged, and then suddenly it like that hole disappeared, and it's like, and we moved in, and now it's the TikToker, and like
Yeah, right.
it's powerful because there are all of these constant like. I grew up in Southern California, so riding a wave.
Yeah.
We go surfing all the time, and that wave comes, that wave, you take it, you ride it, you have a beautiful time, you paddle back out, and there's another wave that comes. And it's just beautiful if you can appreciate each wave for what it is, and there will always be another wave. They'll always be coming.
There
But,
will always that's such a great thing to realize that you don't really
yeah,
realize. I didn't really realize this at year 2 or year 5. At year 10, I feel like I definitely started understanding that, like, look, there are waves, and this thing just
yeah,
comes and, like, things come and go, and you ride them whenever it works out in your favor. I love that analogy so much because I think that's such uh, a great philosophy to have about an internet content business.
right.
Yeah.
And the thing is
Otherwise, you're
too is
just
like,
like a head case all the time.
yes. Well, and you have to adapt, and that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. Like, and like think about surfing, you go back to the 60s, they had these giant longboards. And then and there was just this evolution of styles because people were doing different things. And the beauty is you can still keep surfing. Whatever
Yeah.
it happens, wherever you're at, however it is. And there's always a place for you to do it your way. Like,
Yes.
I've got this podcast that's kind of like a self-helpy, and that evolved. It evolved. And now what
Yeah.
I'm working on is I love writing, but
Yeah.
I get stuck. I'm really dyslexic. So I'll start writing and I just freeze up, but I'm really good at talking. So I'm
Uh-huh.
working on writing my book. I've got this book titled How to Not Be an Asshole that I'm literally
Oh,
writing
awesome.
as we speak. It's such a great book. I love it. I'm like
Hell yeah.
70 pages in, and what I'm doing is I'm taking my podcast, I'm outlining the content I want, then I give a talk on it, and then I throw that transcript into ChatGPT, tell it to format it for me, and then I've
Yeah.
got my words formatted and I throw it into my book, and then I add visuals and make it fun. And the whole point being, like, it's about adapting, and it's
Yeah.
like, and then my financial podcast I started up because I didn't know a damn thing about money. And I have an 8-year-old kid who's like, "Daddy, well, how do we work with money?" And I was like, "Well, let's talk to some experts because I don't know." And like, so now I'm starting to write a book there because all of the financial books don't speak to me. But you know what speaks to me? Zombies. So I'm writing a whole book for kids to understand personal finance through the apocalypse, the zombie apocalypse, like in
Oh, that
every single
rocks.
role. Right? How awesome is that? Right? So that's what I'm working on. I'm outlining. As soon as we're done with this podcast, I like outlining my chapters, outlining the financial concepts, and then I'm just going to do them all as like little talks on my podcast, and
Yeah.
then again create the transcript and format the pages because why not? And it's so much fun. But like again, that was what there were two sides to that. I for a long time worked teaching. And it was
Yeah.
like a career that I tried to step away from. It was my side hustle while I worked in media, but it
Yeah.
was always gave me a steady paycheck, and I had my own media company that I ran with my wife, and I still run with my wife. But I was like, this other thing is stable and it's good pay. But I didn't try to embrace it. But suddenly I saw like, well, you know what? This is what I'm good at. I'm really good. I'm really good at taking a complex concept and helping kids understand it. And I was just like, well,
Yeah.
shit, you know what? That's my thing. That's what I'm good at.
And that's
And
that's a great spirit to build like a media company around because that's really
right?
what you're doing. Like
100%, right?
like
And
you
then
need
that's
to
it.
no, you take all of this information and you distill it and you synthesize it into something that is basically a different like format to be able to
Yep.
absorb something. And you can add your little like hallmarks on it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. If I'm the zombie money guy, dude, I can die happy being the zombie money guy. You know, that's rad, you know?
That's awesome. Wait. Give me a specific like zombie. Give me a specific
needs
like,
versus
passage.
wants, right? This is chapter one. Chapter one. Chapter one is going to be about needs versus wants. And this is an activity I did with my daughter. I created a worksheet. I was like, right? And this is, I'm going to ask you, all right, you've got a backpack. You got only space for 10 items. What are you putting in there? And like,
okay. I mean, water, essentials. I'm going essentials.
Essentials, right? Yeah. Essentials. That's where you look at your needs. So from a personal finance perspective, you have to focus on needs first. Wants, you know, so my daughter put her Nintendo Switch in there and I was like, I love the Nintendo Switch. Like, we're going to assume that you can get power somewhere. We're going to assume that you have network connectivity, which is probably not going to happen in the zombie apocalypse. But I gave her the benefit of the doubt. And then she was like, but I was like, hey, let's look at your list again. Do you have clothes? She's like, no. I'm like, you're fighting zombies naked. It's not the greatest idea, you know? So we had to change it around. But, you know, by doing it that way and framing it like that, she was able to understand needs versus wants, you know? Because
that's awesome.
You tell a kid, talking to a kid about needs versus wants, they don't get that. They can't process that.
No. And you also have to like think, I mean, the process of thinking around the situations where you, of the situation, the context and situations of which you need a backpack for are very different than like, hey, we're going on a trip, you know?
Right. Because there's stress, you know, and there's that catalyst to make you go, all right, now there's something serious here because we live in what we perceive as a safe world. You ever see the page, Nature is Metal on Instagram?
Yeah.
I follow that. It's horrific what you see in there, but I follow that to remind myself, world ain't safe. And as a father, I got to instill that in my child, you know?
I mean, it's super, that's very, very, very funny that like, I don't know, like the zombie apocalypse for finances though, how much more complicated, like, we're not talking about like setting up like saving for retirement here, like
you could, you know, you can frame that in the
shotgun.
Yeah, right. Well, but you can look at like, you start thinking, if you watch The Walking Dead, right? The Walking Dead, they're all about, you know, you get the higher survival, but you get these groups that stay together, you know, and you look at that, you know, what could retirement be? Well, you've got to plan ahead for when you can't do these skills anymore. Does that mean investing in the people around you? Because that could be your retirement. Like at that stage, you know, in retirement could be, well, I'm going to not be this loner. I'm going to network with people and create a system that helps me be safe when I get older, you know, because at the same point, all of us are racing against time. So, you know, you still got it.
For the sake of an analogy, it's like that system in the one season of The Walking Dead where they were all in the jail. Like
Exactly. Well, and like you look at weird things like compounding interest, you know, like, well, one chicken is going to have 2 eggs or multiple eggs and those eggs become more chickens. So you don't kill the chicken that you have. You keep that chicken. You keep all these chickens alive until suddenly you've got a whole farm of chickens right there. And so it's like you have the ability to talk about these concepts in ways a kid understands, you know?
Oh, that is awesome.
That you eat the chicken early, like that chicken's dead, you don't have any more eggs, you know? Yeah. And so it's like spending money early, you know? So I'm like, but again, coming back to like the media concept is there's ways to make it. And I mean, I'm going to write this for kids, but I guarantee you adults are going to be like, dude, I want to read the zombie book about money. That's awesome.
Right? Well, they're the ones who are buying it too. So
100%. Right.
Yeah.
What do you see? Like we were talking a little bit about where do you think media is going to end up going? What do you think's coming in the future?
I mean, I think the most important thing that someone who's long enough in the digital media game can really realize is, you know, going back to the wave analogy, you know, trends really come and go, and there are times to latch on to them. There are times to say no to them. 100%. Like there are, and you know, also you just have to build like a systematic thinking around like how to do it in an efficient way where you're not the only person, it takes a village, or there are processes to, build up workflow. Um, and it's funny because like there have been times where we've said yes to everything over the years, and like all we've ended up learning from that is like how bad we are at like
Yeah.
juggling, a
Right.
gazillion things that like we don't, when we don't have operational focus on the one most important thing. So
Yeah.
I really think what's happening with media right now, you know, platforms rule everything.
Yeah.
That's the, they're these, uh, they are these rivers of information that are impossible to ignore. Consumers love them because there's not a lot of friction on them
Yeah.
between, the actual source of information and how you absorb it and consume it into your brain. And I think like the short, I think you learn that everything in time. You learn that everything kind of has its own place. So like, you know, blogging was led way to like YouTube, and
Yeah.
podcasting kind of started around the same time, and all of these things worked kind of together but didn't. Um, but now I feel like you realize that you can keep adding to that pile of information formats and mediums that continue going on. And I mean the AGI like stuff that's happening with AI
Right.
is, to me, is like the biggest. It's a big disruptive change, but
100%.
it's going to look in the next 5 years like what a lot of media has looked like, I think, over time, where like brands emerge from it, and there are kind of like ways that the technology works that you have an interface of and you consume. The analogy I like to always use is like either a magazine or cable TV. Like MTV used to be music videos, and like cable was its dominant thing, and then it became like
Yeah.
a gazillion different other things under Paramount and Viacom and its many different like iterations. And at this point in time, you don't even know if you're consuming something that ultimately is getting put on a P&L that MTV is still in charge of in
Right.
some way. But I think that's going to be what happens with like AI and how people consume like artificially generated information. Is they'll be wrapped up in these ways where it's very easy for people to digest, and without like having to put having to feel like their sense of reality is like suspended from it. Does that make sense?
100%. I got two examples that I think are going to be
Yeah.
interesting. And first of all, going back in time, I have this weird obsession with watching. This is weird, but I love it. Watching videos of people trimming horse hooves, like a
Uh-huh.
farrier. And
Yeah.
like for like a couple years ago, it like just blew up. Maybe 2 years ago, it blew up on TikTok. Everyone was watching these horse hoof trimming videos. Well, why that's interesting to me is like that used to be one of the most common jobs in America. Like
Yeah.
there were farriers everywhere because everyone had a horse. And
Yeah.
it was like, we look at it as like this rare, not normal thing. But that's what like our car mechanic is now. Like you go everywhere now, there's a car mechanic
Yes.
everywhere. And so can you imagine the time? I remember my mom told me a story about my great grandma, that my great grandpa had bought a early car, and it was like one of those buggy things, and she got so freaked out about this moving buggy and there was no horse that she dove off the damn thing and broke her arm. And so like, because she's like, oh no, chucked herself off of the damn car because it was too terrifying to her. And I think that AI in ways is also the same type of thing. People just can't picture where it's going. But like, imagine going back in time, speaking to someone in 1890 and be like, I'm going to tell you about the business of the future. And they're like, what? What is this? Come here, man. Car detailing, car washes. Yeah. And the person's like, I can't even comprehend this. And they can't. They
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
don't have the frame of reference to understand everything that was going to come after, the years of car culture, the idea, the identity people would have wrapped up in the symbol of self in your
Yeah.
car. And you know, like they can't comprehend the 50s and the big fins, you know, they can't comprehend the 60s and muscle car era. They can't comprehend any of this. And like you get to this point where they're just like, and so we're sitting there like literally at that transition point where people are starting to ride or drive in cars. And it's really basic cars. Like that's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
ChatGPT, everyone's like, oh my God, blown away. Dude, this is like the most basic type of stuff. I mean, even though it's awesome, it's like seriously, like we're just in the infancy of this stuff.
I think that's why it's so exciting, Sean. Like,
Right?
I think like, you know, and I think like you have to zoom out, like you have to zoom out of what the last 20 years of the internet has been. And like, we've had all these technologies that's come into, that have come into our lives and they've become very normal, commonplace in how we use them. And like the output of a lot of these technologies is this idea that like everything is content, you know, like your horse hooves example is like, it's like, okay, it's this normal job, but because it's so foreign to like, modern life, it somehow is fascinating. And you know, that's the curiosity gap that drives what everything is content is. And, you know, you see it on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, like all the platforms where, you know, these things get distributed to people. I think what AI is amazing at, and this is really my way of like thinking about it, is like it's how to take this massive information that the everything is content, you know, ethos has created for humankind and make sense of it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's the thing. Internet put information out there, but it was never processed. It was like very much like just, here you go, everything that you need. Versus AI said, all right, you've got knowledge. Let's distill it. Let's look at it. And, you know, for me, like as a teacher, it's been a life changer because, and this is the thing. Think about it this way, right? Teaching English to someone, I had textbooks that were created by experts. And you know what happens half of the time? They suck. Like the information gaps between lessons. Like I would be teaching the present continuous. I am walking to school. Right. And for some reason, the authors of this book, very famous publisher, decided that they weren't going to necessarily teach that. So I'm sitting there as a teacher and I've got this one page that's got like 2 sentences on it. And I'm like, I have to now stretch this out for 2 hours and make sure that these people know how to use this point. So what I'm like, dude, ChatGPT, let's spice this up. Let's talk about zombies. I had one lesson where we were talked about my class was attacked by dinosaurs because my kids all love Jurassic Park. And so I was like, all right, dude, let's talk about it. And I used their names and they were fighting off dinosaurs, you know. Tommy
and did you feel like
riding the T-Rex.
Yeah. Did you feel like they had like a better
experience?
Yeah,
and understand 100%. And then I'm creating worksheets and creating, you know, because here's one of the things that like is really tough. The reading in the book is awful, horrible. Yeah. So I asked AI, I was like, give me the perspective of 5 different students and what happened when they were at the park and the dinosaurs broke out. Tommy from New Zealand, you know, and I gave people different countries, different names, different nationalities. And so these kids were getting this multicultural perspective and 5 different readings around the comprehension questions. I've never seen kids that engaged in a reading lesson before, but they were just over there laughing their butts off going, Bob just got eaten by a velociraptor. And I was like, and that's what is powerful about AI. Is that it creates this experience that can be fun. And you can be afraid of it. You know, it's like, I imagine all of the early people like, I will never ride in a car. No,
right.
Not I. This is too dangerous. This metal contraption, you know, it will never be safe. You know, and some of them were not safe. Jay Leno's got this video of like some of these steam cars that he had. And like, dude, it was just like this tanker, like, look at the Hindenburg. My God, you know, hydrogen, terrifying. But now we're figuring it out, you know? Dude. And like, go ahead.
No, like, I mean, we totally are figuring out. And I think that I think that one of the things that I always think about, like with, this media brand that we've built with like BroBible over the years, like there's been a lot of like hysteria around, what the role of uh, content or media will be. I think people get a little afraid whenever it's like, oh, you're going to be an avatar that can just say things as you, and like all this sort of like stuff. The idea around the loss of control is scary.
Yeah.
Just like riding in a plane in 1925
Right.
was too.
Right.
Like,
Right.
but I do think, but my philosophy is it's evolved to the standpoint where, like, we are always there's always going to be new information that humans need to uh contextualize in order for computers to really understand it. So like, if myself or my group is very good at that, then like we're basically giving, we're able to be a layer of which people can consume new things like that, or new information around about the world around them. And doing that as a brand is a great way to do it, because that's just how people have consumed media traditionally,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
so people
Well,
can wrap their heads around like,
100%.
what the group of a BroBible train of thought is around, specifically around like sports or pop culture, which is kind of traditionally our superpower.
Right. That's awesome. Well, and it's like, I like that too, because it's one of the things about living in Asia that was really interesting. The cities are more oriented like the internet in a weird way.
Yeah.
So like when my
Wait.
wife's mom.
What do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll fill you in. All
You're
right,
going
check it
there.
out.
Okay, great.
Check it out. Where things are more logical online, right? In ways, we group things. There's more groupings, but like, imagine you have a city in the U.S. and maybe I'm completely wrong, but there's an interesting point here. You get a city in the U.S. and it's going to be, over here is your, this shop, camera shop. Over here is this. Everything's kind of just spread out. But one of the things that's really interesting in Asia is they have much more districts. And like this, LA has this too. Like, you have the garment district. But here in Vietnam, it's like literally extreme. Like there's the wedding shop street. Okay. It's the whole street is people selling wedding dresses. Like the whole street. There was the camera street, which is the place that
just camera shops
sell cameras. And like, if you need a camera, well, dude, you go to the camera street, and it's like, it's kind of wild like that, because we do seek out, and it makes it for consuming media. It's easier in ways because the place that you're going to go to get that thing or to get stuff along those lines,
Yeah.
And it's like we have different social media platforms, but it's kind of getting blurred now too. Like LinkedIn, like that was the place that I went to see business stuff. But now LinkedIn is trying to be TikTok. And it's like, so like all these videos, and it's like a day in the life of a LinkedIn influencer. And I mean, okay, cool. I'm feeling happy for you. But that's generally not what I was looking for here. Like LinkedIn was where I went to see topics about other things. And it's like, it for me as the consumer of information, that kind of threw me off, because I was not looking to watch that. That's what I go watch on Instagram or TikTok, because that's kind of the vibe there. But like a day in the life of a LinkedIn influencer was not what I was expecting to wake up to.
Well, it's like, it's interesting though how platforms change their intentions like that over time. And usually it's like a cross modality across, how a behavior on some other platform works that someone tries to bring in, and it's, which is it's jarring, but it's not unexpected, because that's
100%.
always happened in media. Like
100%. And it's like this is the interesting thing. The thing that it cracks me up on LinkedIn is this, and I use all of them. I just thought LinkedIn was like the very business thing, but now. And like there was this whole debate, and I was reading it, and it was, I thought it was awesome. Reading the debate was awesome, because people on both sides were like, you can't do this. It was talking about, are selfies allowed on LinkedIn? And And it was like, and people were up in arms. There were people like,
Yeah.
I want to have my self-expression. I need a selfie. And other people were like, how dare you have a selfie on this platform? And I was just like, this is rad. But it's watching the thing evolve in real time, which is pretty cool. You know,
there's a really good historic analogy of this. This takes me back to literally my media studies 101 class that I had at Penn State at age like 18. So, and this is how you just know that things work in cycles. Like, or to me, it's like a good analogy of how things work in cycles. So, USA Today, I think, originally came out in like the early 80s, around the time that cable TV first came out. Okay. And USA Today newspaper, nationally syndicated newspaper. So it's in airports, you know, in front of your hotel door. Like you can get it at a daily edition everywhere. They're Gannett built out distribution channels so that it could print in every major metro and be the highest circulation like newspaper at the time. Because cable TV was just starting to take off, and there were all these, it was kind of the media obsession at the time. They designed their newspaper boxes to look like TVs. TV sets back in the day. So there was kind of an instant thing in your brain where you were like, oh, news information from the newspaper that looks like TV. And then in addition to that, they were also one of the first dailies to go to press with like color. So color print.
Right. I remember that.
And graphics packages and everything else like that. So they were basically trying to make TV news as a newspaper. And that was why, for almost 3 decades, they exploded. And, everybody of a certain age knows what USA Today is like. And that was like a part of their strategy, was to be like, we are going to be TV, but the TV that you read, and their, the writing style was super simple, like how, TV news comes across and everything else like that. And that just goes to show you, though, that the same thing happens online,
Yeah, right. Well, which is interesting. There was a really great, I remember reading this, and this just shows you that it goes back even further. They were talking about new instruments that were added throughout history. We sit there and think about the oboe, the piano, the tuba as like these things that have been, or that's classical music. That stuff's old. But, there was a point in time where the violin was a new instrument. There was a point in time where the piano was a new instrument. And you read some of the people, the contemporary of that time, they were like, oh, the piano. Right. It's just this disgustful sound. Anyone who uses a piano in their music is looked down upon, and same thing.
It's not a liar or like,
right? How dare you bring that instrument into this music, and they were really upset, but then it evolved and that became the norm, well, of course you have piano and of course you use violins, and it's like, versus now. I mean, I remember I loved, there was a Daft Punk album that they had, and they were interviewed. Was it something George? This guy who was like the synth guy.
Yeah, the synth guy. Who's
the synth
George?
Guy.
Yeah, amazing.
I can't remember his name.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It was on Random Access Memories.
Exactly, and he tells this story about creating this sound, and the sound of the '80s. Like if you've watched any '80s movie, that was the sound, every movie had it. And it was just this little thing this guy did. And at first people were like, well, I don't know, but it's fire. Yeah. It comes back to the waves. Like these waves are always going to come. And one of the things I study Taoism, studying Chinese medicine. One of the fundamentals of Chinese medicine are rooted in Taoism. And Taoist, one of the major principles is like the idea of water. Like Bruce Lee, be like water, my friend. And like the softest thing can overcome the hardest. So you see a rock, on the standing next to the ocean. What's the ocean going to do to that rock? It's going to wear it down. because these waves will keep hitting, and you can be the rock and understand that you will get worn down and swept away, or you can be the water. You can go with the water and you can flow with it. And I mean, and with
Be like
media,
water. Yeah.
be like water. I don't think you can get a better motto for being in the media industry than be like water, because you adapt, you flex, you flow. I did my MBA, and then I was like, wow, I need to do this. Like, I was talking to my daughter. We have a YouTube that I'm building still with my daughter. It's not her channel. It's our channel. It's called Ilani's Little World.
Yeah.
And when she was a kid, all of these kids had toy channels. And I was like, well, let's try to jump on that bandwagon. We've got a kid,
right. Yeah.
And then I made a couple of videos and creating toys. And I was like, man, I don't like doing toys. And I don't think that I always want to have my daughter wanting to buy something new. So we shifted the content to teaching kids about animals and teaching about STEM and science and English and the world around us. And we have now this channel. It's not crazy big, but we got 10,000 followers, and we put out regular content about like kid stuff, and it's fun, and we have fun. Our last video was about journey to the Amazon, and we get to share about Amazon animals, and we get to fun, silly things. Our next video is about natural disaster. And what I do is I create, again, using AI, I create a story that we're fighting against the person for the Amazon video. We're fighting against this guy trying to cut down, what was it? His name was like Dr. Slashwood. Yeah, Dr. Slashwood.
Oh, that's and he's so much more
he's got this. I'll put a picture up. He's like this guy that looks like and I used ChatGPT to create an image of like a rugged, terrifying looking Indiana Jones with I photoshopped in like a chainsaw. So it's Dr. Slashwood. And so Dr. Slashwood is trying to cut down the trees, and we have to run away from him. And like the idea was, I started that channel over here, and we went this way. And, we're constantly adapting, because as things flow, then we flow with it.
How has the reception been to that channel? Like, are you building a fan base, you feel like?
Yeah, we are actually. We are. It's harder to check to see your interactions with kid channels because they banned all comments. And it's tough to know. But what we do know is that we will go places and have people come up to us. And like it used to be people, because my wife is a celebrity in Vietnam, people run up and go, oh, hey, V, we know you. But now people run up and say, Ilani, I love your videos. Awesome. So we get people that see them, and kids love them. It's, for me, I'm trying to be the wave and understand and go back and see, well, what's working? What's not working? What I see that works for that is they love the shocking. But I mean, I'm not going to be Coyote Peterson getting stung by a different bug every episode, because I just can't do that. Like, I don't know where to find the bugs, and that's his thing. But we do find ways to kind of make it better. And one of the things we're branching out into is to song. My daughter loves singing, and so we're adding songs. And I'm using Suno AI, which is an app that writes music for you to create the songs. So AI makes it so much more accessible.
How do you feel about because you have a music background, right? And how do you feel about like the direction of like AI music? And just like, I think so much of the conversation around AI has been focused on like LLMs, or at least, depending on what you want to see. So much noise has been made around LLMs for like written language stuff. But how do you feel about the like direction in like into other arts like music and that sort of thing?
Let me put it this way. Let me take it into a different direction, something I can speak more clearly to. As a teacher, I think teachers are going to be phased out in a weird way and phased back in a different way.
Yeah.
We're already seeing this in universities. I teach at a university still, and my students don't like to show up. I think that more teaching will be podcasts or scripted things, podcast, YouTube
almost
videos.
Like ambient learning.
It's in the background. And then what professors are going to be doing is bringing people together for project-based learning. Yeah. And I was talking to people that are teaching at the school I'm studying at, and I've noticed it. The classes, no one's paying attention. Everyone's just kind of drifting. But it doesn't mean people don't want to learn. They're just learning in a different way. Now, how am I tying that to music? All right. Professors in the traditional sense are going to change.
Yeah.
But I am adapting and I'm taking AI in a direction that is allowing me as a skilled teacher to teach even better. Okay. So for music, as you know, you listen to this, and I mean, I'm not getting into copyright and how the things are trained, but even with people writing music right now, like nothing under the sun is truly original. You
No.
grow up listening to musicians. You grow
Yeah.
up listening to the people inspired you. You know, you can hear. I'm sure that Stevie Ray Vaughan grew up listening to Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
And like there
My
is still the inspiration.
my both of my parents are music teachers, and my dad taught music theory for years. And music theory is like the most ingrained in stone thing, like
Yep.
going back to the 1500s, like
Huh? Right. Well, and I think what my point is I think these tools will make creative people even more creative. That you
Yeah.
take it and then you can go, all right, wow, that's a great bass. Let's play with that. My friend who's a guitarist who does a lot of guitar for us, he's a virtuoso guitarist. And then I sent him a song from Suno that we did for a kids channel, and he listened to it. He's like, Sean, this is amazing. I'm learning guitar licks just from listening to this. And so
Oh,
he's like
awesome.
sitting there, and he's this talented guitarist, and he's like, I never thought about doing this with the guitar, but this AI created something that he then went and began to emulate in his songs.
Yeah.
So I think that, again, it's this knowledge compendium that it's bringing all this stuff together, and it allows us to be better.
He can put the soul into it that like
Exactly.
makes it like the human. It's like the direction.
Imperfections. Yeah.
The direction might be the direction is inspirational, but the output is human,
100%. And I think that this is where I think that if you downplay, I mean, Terminator was the Terminator for a reason. Like things could go south. But if we learn, and humans have always been a species that learns, a species that adapts. I mean, dude, when we created different types of steel, and that was probably one of the most dangerous things that humans created, because guns, swords, you think about all of these weapons that, a copper blade is not going to be as dangerous as a steel blade, And it could have been a world-ending thing, but we adapted, we learned, and we pushed on, But I think it's about an openness. And my daughter, in her backpack, had one last thing that was powerful. She listed out all her wants, or her needs, and then she had her Nintendo Switch. That was her want. There was one more thing that she put into her bag. And I got schooled this day, and I still think about it. And I think, wow, I think I'm raising a pretty good kid right now. My daughter sat there and said, I have one last thing in the backpack, Daddy. And I was like, what is it? And she said, hope. You can't lose hope. And I was just like, oh my God, it's some deep stuff. And I was just like, I didn't even think about including something esoteric, but like, I think the thing that is important with all the discussion about AI, all the discussion about media, you can't lose hope with humanity. You just got to keep believing.
I think it's so easy. It's so easy to go down like a pit of despair with platforms. I think just because there's an inherent helplessness to like the scale of which platforms operate at. But I mean, if you can get past it, it's like, that's where, to me, like, of course, like that to me is where hope is such a endearing like spirit, because if you can get past it and you can learn to grow and embrace it, like there's nothing but good things that are going to come. Like,
100%.
When it comes back to like the lanes of the media business.
Right. And I think that it's just this thing that you have to circle back on, because like, and this is what my team, my editing team was like, should we focus on this or that video because of the views? And I said, just make stuff that is powerful. Just make
Yeah.
stuff that we believe in, and just, have the hope that even if not, if 10 people watch this video, but if it's something that's powerful and it's something that's good, we're winning right there. We're winning, and have hope that you can make an impact. You know what I mean?
I also think like there's a thing that this is just like a wisdom over time thing that, when you learn how to uh when you learn how to reuse the things, like the purpose for things that you've done over the course of whatever your trajectory of your career or ability, your timeline of making something is, you start to realize that like that's actually the thing that like real artists do, is just dip back into things that they did 10 years ago to give them new life and bring like a different kind of freshness. Like that's just like creative thinking in a nutshell. I think there's this bad uh there's this bad thing that I think happens where everything has to be new and everything
Right.
has to be fresh. Where
Right.
the ability to actually make something new and fresh usually is the part of like thinking through things that you've been doing for a very long time and revisiting ideas in order to actually make them better, you know?
Yeah. I'm with you on that, man. I'm with you. It's like, someone was like commenting on this one artist that I had seen, and they're like sharing their new music, and they're like, oh, it sounds like their old stuff. And I was like, but it's not. It's new. It's them.
Yeah.
And of course it sounds like their old stuff. It's the same person. It's like, it's just a new iteration of that person. Do you expect them to have something completely different? It's like, no, they are who they are. I mean, not everyone can reinvent themselves every album, but they can evolve. They can grow.
There's nothing more exciting too, I think, especially in music, but I think you also see this in like movies. You see this with writing, like you see this in, all aspects of the arts. Like when someone revisits something, or
Yeah.
revisits something but adds like a fresher spin on it, I think that's one of the most powerful things that an artist can really do, is like, rather than taking some great evolutionary step forward, it's a little bit of like returning to your hometown in order
Yeah.
to like give the warm and fuzzies. And that's how you really unlock like superpowers with fans and like, that sort of thing.
This is the reason people keep watching Star Wars movies and Marvel. People keep coming back because, you know what? Dude, you're evolving. And like, dude, yeah, I love The Mandalorian. Jeez.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Everything.
This is the way.
This is the way, my friend. Got a shirt right over there. This is the way.